The rain poured in sheets, soaking through John's collar as he stood by the curb, clutching the small velvet box he'd hidden in his coat pocket all week. A soaked bouquet of lilies dangled loosely in his left hand. He had memorized every word of the proposal. He knew exactly how she smiled when surprised. He even called ahead to her favorite restaurant. Rooftop table, candlelight, violin. But Sophia never showed. Instead, a black Maybach glided to a halt in front of the restaurant. The back door opened, and there she was, his girlfriend of 3 years, laughing as she tucked her arm around the man in the driver's seat. John froze. It was Stephen, his former mentor, his former boss, the man who had taught him everything about the venture capital game and then poached his patent, and now, apparently, his partner. Sophia never looked out the window. She didn't need to. John wasn't even part of the skyline anymore. That night, a single message lit up his screen. "You'll understand one day. Love needs security." He read it once, deleted it. Then, like the man he used to be, he disappeared. 2 years passed. Victor and Mira Holdings was still thriving on the surface. Flashy press releases, fake acquisition buzz, glitzy galas with Sophia glued to Stephen's arm like a fashion accessory. She wore the pearls John once said would look perfect on her wedding day. Now they just choked her neckline, elegant and hollow. But inside the boardroom, cracks had formed, and in one corner of the city, where ivy crawled along the windows of a small unbranded building, a man they thought forgotten was writing the company's obituary, stroke by silent stroke. John never fought back publicly. He never tweeted, never posted, never lashed out. Instead, he built his second company in silence. He partnered with Stephen's quietest rivals, acquired the subcontractors no one was watching, recruited Victor and Mira's most overworked talent, offering them freedom, royalties, and silence. Then, on a gray Tuesday morning, without ceremony, without press, without even a meeting, he signed a paper. The company was his. The firm that once stole his love, his ideas, and his youth now bore his initials in fine ink. And standing beside him at the conference table? Liza, Stephen's former lover, the woman he'd discarded after Sophia rose in clout, now reappointed as executive vice president under John, quiet, sharp, loyal, in a way ambition couldn't measure. John didn't smile. He didn't even stand. He signed, passed the folder across the table. "Send it through legal, quietly." Liza nodded once. No celebration, no handshake, just acknowledgement. No one in the boardroom noticed what had happened. Not yet. Across the city, Sophia posted a new story, her sipping champagne in a rooftop bar, Stephen seated across from her, sunglasses on indoors. The caption read, "Loyalty always wins. Kiss." An intern rushed in 10 minutes later to whisper something in Stephen's ear. The smile left his face. Back in John's office, Liza placed a coffee cup on the desk, black, no sugar, just like he liked it. She didn't speak. John stared out the window at the skyline they'd both been thrown from years ago. He didn't need revenge served hot or cold. He didn't need witnesses. He just needed ownership of his past, of his choices, and of what they thought he would never take back. The rain outside started again, and somewhere in that city, Sophia finally refreshed her inbox. The ownership transfer file loaded slowly. She clicked, froze. 2 years ago, John was a name only listed in patent filings and employee handbooks. A quietly brilliant engineer with a mind that processed faster than his words. He was the kind of man who corrected faulty code in silence and let his teammates take credit. He preferred evenings in data centers over champagne lounges, and his idea of intimacy was stability, routine, honesty, loyalty. Not fireworks, not drama. He met Sophia during a university demo event sponsored by a venture firm. She was sharp-tongued, stunning, and already rehearsing her PR smile for rooms full of people richer than her. John was the opposite, awkward with praise and bad with cameras, but they clicked in ways that made noise feel irrelevant. While she applied foundation before interviews, he fixed hardware bugs that kept crashing presentations. While she posted filtered coffees and CEO life captions, he coded through the night without looking up. For 2 years, they built something. He thought it was a future, but it was just a bridge for her, a bridge to Stephen. CEO of the firm that sponsored John's early projects, Stephen had seen talent in the young programmer early.
He brought John into meetings, asked for his thoughts, and called him my right hand at parties. But somewhere between mentorship and manipulation, lines blurred. Stephen saw everything in numbers: valuation, visibility, virality. And John was just another asset: useful, loyal, replaceable. Then one night, John walked into the company's main office to deliver a patch. Sophia was in Stephen's office. The lights were dimmed. Her blazer was on the floor. She didn't flinch when John entered. She didn't hide. She only said, "You'll understand someday. Love needs security." John said nothing. He turned, walked out. The proposal ring in his pocket burned like lead. He vanished the next day. But someone else noticed. Liza had once been Stephen's secret weapon, his advisor, his fixer. She'd helped raise seed funding rounds no one thought was possible, negotiated hostile deals into multi-million exits, and carried his empire through 3 separate PR disasters. But when Sophia entered the picture, Stephen dropped her like a stock he no longer believed in. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She memorized everything. When she found John again, pale, withdrawn, working at a no-name co-working space, she didn't ask questions. She only asked one thing. "Do you want to destroy them or replace them?" John didn't speak. He just handed her a flash drive, encrypted blueprints of everything Victor and Mira had ever stolen. And so it began. No declarations, no revenge posts, just quiet building, ghost meetings, silent shares. John used shell companies to start acquiring minority positions in subsidiaries that fed Victor and Mira Holdings. Liza dug through old contacts, found employees Stephen had underpaid and discarded. Together, they built a silent empire, laying the foundation like chessboard pieces. No one noticed, no one questioned. And while John was reclaiming his work, Liza was reclaiming her voice. The contrast couldn't be clearer. While Sophia posed on balconies and shared wine with influencers, Liza combed through financial reports. While Stephen barked orders and team calls, John offered quiet ownership to overworked engineers. While the power couple flooded tech blogs with curated photo shoots, John and Liza stayed in the shadows. Sophia still believed she had won. She wore custom blazers now, switched between Teslas and Lamborghinis. She sat beside Stephen during investor dinners and nodded like she understood business projections. But behind the scenes, she was losing influence. Their backers were pulling out. Their pre-order product was buggy. Competitors had insider info on every move. Because every move had been anticipated. By John. By Liza. And yet the two never spoke of payback. They never toasted victory. There were no "I told you so's," no tantrums, no pettiness. Just plans, progress, code. Their office had no signage. The security badge had no logo. Even the coffee mugs were blank. It wasn't revenge. It was a transition from what had been stolen to what was now earned. But the city still clung to the wrong narrative. They called Sophia and Stephen the titans of tech. They spoke of resilience, vision, modern romance. Even gossip blogs loved them. Liza would screenshot the headlines and send them to John without comment. He'd respond with edits to back-end architecture, not a word about the past, but the silence between them carried more weight than any published exposé. Then one afternoon, Sophia saw it. She was scrolling late at night, unable to sleep, when she saw a press leak, anonymous, just one sentence. Kairos Systems rumored to have acquired multiple V&M vendors. Kairos, a name she had never heard since college, a name that meant little to most investors but meant everything to her because it was the name John had once mentioned in bed. "If I ever have a company," he had whispered, "I'll call it Kairos. It means supreme timing." Her hand trembled. She woke Stephen. He dismissed it as nonsense. Let the little nerd play CEO. It doesn't mean anything. But the next month, 3 of their silent partners went dark. Investors froze their funding. Pre-orders dropped by 70%. And John? He didn't appear on the cover of a magazine. He didn't take the stage at a summit. He didn't even file a press release. He just walked into the boardroom, Liza at his side. She took notes. He took the chair. No applause, just control. In the background, Sophia panicked. She called old friends, messaged John from a burner account, showed up at shared haunts. He never responded. because silence was his answer. And when the moment came, when ownership officially transferred and John became the majority stakeholder, he didn't gloat. He didn't gloat when Stephen was escorted out of the building. He didn't flinch when Sophia showed up crying, asking for clarity. He only looked at Liza. Cancel her access credentials. That night, Liza sent out one internal memo. New leadership effective immediately. No restructuring, no spotlight, just performance. She signed it quietly, with no title beneath her name. John stood in the hallway long after everyone left, the lights dimmed, the building silent. His world, once broken in front of a server room, had come full circle, not with revenge, but with reclaiming. Not with noise, but with power. Victor and Mira Holdings announced its new flagship AI suite with a bang. The press release dropped at 8 a.m.
The leak about AI instability didn't come from Kairos. It came from one of Victor's junior engineers, the same one Sophia once called a glorified intern during a conference call. He had dinner with Liza 3 nights later. In a span of 4 months, 15 key back-end developers from Victor and Mira submitted their resignation letters. 12 were already working for John. The other 3 had contracts pending. Still, Sophia smiled for the cameras. She posed in silk, posted cryptic "grind never stops" badge captions. She didn't realize she was becoming irrelevant. She didn't notice her online engagement dropping. She didn't hear the whispers in the hallway, employees calling her face only, interns muttering about stability issues. She didn't notice because she was preparing for the gala. It was the TechX Autumn Summit, the city's biggest startup gala of the year. Stephen was keynote speaker. Sophia was slated to live stream red carpet interviews. They invited foreign investors, fashion bloggers, photographers, everyone who mattered. But no one expected John to attend. He hadn't been seen in public since he left Victor and Mira. No interviews, no dinners. He declined every invitation, even anonymous ones. So when the limo pulled up and a man stepped out in a dark slate suit, tailored clean, no tie, watch dial exposed, eyes calm, there was a slight pause in the crowd. Not confusion, recognition, but so distant they almost didn't believe it. He didn't walk the carpet. He didn't pose. He simply entered. Liza trailed 3 steps behind, in a midnight blue dress, her hair pinned, minimal jewelry. She carried no clutch, just a tablet. They moved like executives, not guests. Stephen caught sight of them from across the ballroom. At first he smiled, that condescending, confident curl of the mouth. Then John met his eyes. No smile, just a nod. Stephen's hand paused mid-toast. His jaw stiffened. The room didn't stop, but his breath did. Sophia noticed a second later. She spun, clutching her wine stem, and nearly dropped it. John walked past them both like they were strangers at a train station. Liza glanced over once. Nothing more. They weren't there to confront. They weren't there to impress. They were simply present, and presence, when quiet, becomes suffocating. As the gala continued, whispers followed him. Junior CEOs introduced themselves with fumbled names. Investors asked him for cards. A university dean offered him a speaking slot. John declined them all with the same line: "I'm not looking for attention, just progress." Later, Stephen approached. No Sophia beside him now. She had wandered off, likely to compose herself. "John," Stephen said, voice careful, civil. "Didn't expect you tonight." John sipped his water. No one ever expects silence. Stephen gave a hollow laugh, still cryptic. "No," John said, "just different." There was no handshake. Stephen leaned in slightly. "Listen, there's a deal I've been meaning to talk about, some overlap in our back-end delivery services. Could be synergy if we play it right." John tilted his head. "Like when you mentored me, took my patent, dated my girlfriend?" Stephen froze. John added, "No synergy, Stephen, just subtraction." He turned and left, didn't raise his voice, didn't look back. Sophia tried to intercept him near the exit. She called his name once, too soft. Again, sharper this time. He didn't stop. She reached out, but Liza slid into place between them with a single pivot. "No," she said flatly. "You've had enough chances." John and Liza left the building before the keynote began. Inside, Stiffen delivered his speech. His voice cracked twice. No one knew why. Outside, in the quiet of the limo, Liza handed John a single document. Final acquisition clause. Approval pending. One signature away from controlling Victor and Mira outright. John looked out the window as the city blurred past. He muttered, "They thought noise equals power, but they never understood silence lasts longer." Liza didn't speak. She only nodded. Later that night, Sophia went live. She posted a video from the gala pretending nothing happened. Her caption read, "Great night with the best partner in tech and life. #blessed." But in her draft folder, there was another post she didn't publish. Just 5 words. "I think I made a mistake." She deleted it. John never saw it. He was already planning the next move. The message came at 6:42 a.m., long before the city woke. "You've changed. I almost didn't recognize you." John didn't reply. He read it once, then let the notification fade into his lock screen. Sophia had never messaged him this early before, not even when they were together. Back then, mornings were hers. Filters, routines, live streams, beauty shots, follower count first. And now, she was reaching out during silence. That, to him, said everything. He placed the phone face down on the counter and returned to his notes. Liza was due in 40 minutes. They had a board call with their newest European investor group at 8 a.m. sharp. 10 million in soft funding had been approved last week, but today they'd solidify control over Victor's final regional branch. While the city yawned into daylight, Sophia sat on her apartment floor in last night's makeup. Her ring light glared off, her studio corner untouched. She hadn't gone live. Couldn't. Every time she pressed start, her own voice disgusted her. It sounded fake now, too sharp, too polished, and John's silence echoed louder than any comment section she ever moderated. She typed again, "You were always kind. I miss that version of you." Still no reply. Across the skyline, Victor's office lights were still off. He hadn't shown up to headquarters in 2 days. His face, once plastered across trade magazines and banner ads, was now conspicuously missing from startup features. One blog posted a blind item. Famed AI founder facing silent hostile pressure? The comments filled in the blanks. His investors weren't blind. After the product glitch, 2 major partners quietly pulled their funds and redirected them to Kairos. When he called one for clarification, they didn't even deny it. "You taught him too well. Maybe that's on you." Victor slammed the phone down and nearly cracked the glass table. He thought about calling Sophia, but every time he heard her voice now, he couldn't tell if she was talking to him or to her audience. It all blended, content and conversation, real and performed. That used to excite him. Now it just grated. Sophia, spiraling and unread, showed up at Kairos HQ without an appointment. She wore a blush beige coat, cinched tightly. Her makeup looked flawless from a distance, but close up, it was rushed. She clutched a paper bag with lemon cake, the kind John used to buy from a tiny corner bakery they frequented. He archived the message, then opened his email from the board. The final stage of takeover was approved. All that remained was the public transition. Liza knocked and stepped in. "It's done," she said. "We're launching the press draft tomorrow." John closed the laptop. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes flickered. Not joy, not triumph. Something quieter. He said, "They think this was revenge." She nodded. But it wasn't. He added, "It was the only way I could heal." Outside, the skyline burned with golden hour light. the kind Sophia once called perfect for photos, the kind John used to ignore. Now, he looked out at it, silent, whole, untouchable. Sophia wasn't finished. Not yet. The silence between her and John had turned into something she couldn't bear anymore. Not after the gala, not after the empty text replies, and certainly not after Leah appeared beside him like they'd always belonged together. She thought if she could craft the right opportunity, she could rewrite her role in his story. So she staged one. A glossy charity collaboration, a fake alignment with a known youth education nonprofit, masking it as a full-circle redemption event. She claimed to be bringing together pioneers of the tech future and presented it as a reconciliation between estranged entrepreneurs. She told the press John had agreed. He hadn't. But she knew the press wouldn't verify. They just needed a hint of scandal, a taste of tension. She dropped subtle teases on her live streams, mentioning an old friend coming back, surprising announcements, bridges being rebuilt. Victor encouraged her from behind the curtain. "It'll put us back in the spotlight, back in control," he said, pacing like a man who couldn't feel his edges anymore. "If John shows up, even out of confusion, it makes us look united. If he doesn't, we spin it as forgiveness denied." But Liza was watching, listening. And while Sophia curated hashtags, Liza pulled records. Buried inside the charity's last quarterly filings was a series of falsified donation receipts. The foundation had been inactive for months, its previous manager indicted for embezzlement. What Sophia had revived wasn't redemption, it was fraud waiting to be exposed. Liza sent the documents to a quiet journalist. No drama, no calls. Just a folder, watermarked and timestamped. She attached a quote. "Redemption only matters when it's earned, not performed." That morning, the article dropped. The headline didn't name Sophia or Victor, but the details were obvious. Screenshots, audio bites, a falsified invoice bearing Sophia's signature. The live stream community turned fast. Hashtags changed from reunion of the year to clout for cash and liar lives. Victor's office exploded. Sophia collapsed into a chair in his penthouse suite. "Damage control, we need..." But Victor had already locked the door and started shouting into his phone, calling publicists, cursing investors. No one answered. At that exact moment, John appeared on a quiet tech panel interview streamed by a mid-tier business outlet. No one expected him to show. The interviewer was nervous. They hadn't prepared for this level of attention. John wore no tie, just a gray shirt and a clean jacket. Calm eyes. The host stammered, "Joining us today is John, now appointed as the majority shareholder of EchoMind, formerly under Victor Stiffin's leadership." It was quiet. Too quiet. The chat froze. John just nodded once. "We won't be changing the product name. Just the principles behind it." When asked what prompted the acquisition, he simply said, "Misalignment of values. Some debts require silence to be paid in full." The internet imploded. Sophia stood at the screen, mouth open, unable to speak. Victor stared at the footage like it was a hallucination. The next day, EchoMind's board convened. No warning to Victor. They voted unanimously. Stefan was removed as CEO. Leah, formerly dismissed, discarded, and humiliated, was appointed Chief Operating Officer by majority vote. She didn't smile in the boardroom, just signed the papers and said, "Let's clean this place up." Victor stormed out mid-meeting. No one stopped him. In the hallway, he caught John just as he exited the building. "You think this is justice?" he roared. "You think this is winning?" John didn't stop walking. "You think you're better than me? I made you." John paused, slowly turned. "No, you used me, and I let you. Once." Victor's face flushed. "You don't get to rewrite history." John's eyes didn't waver. "I didn't.
You wrote your own ending the day you taught me silence wasn't weakness." Victor screamed, an unhinged sound, lost in an empty hallway with no one to hear it but himself. Sophia arrived just as John reached the elevator. She had chased him all the way from the car, heels in hand, breath ragged. "You planned this," she gasped. "All of it." "From the moment you left." He looked at her. For a moment, he seemed to consider answering, not cruelly, not coldly, just factually. "No," he said softly. "You just taught me what silence can achieve." And then the elevator doors closed. Inside, John stood still. The quiet wasn't oppressive anymore. It felt earned, like air finally moving through a sealed chamber. Beside him, Liza waited with the final transfer documents. "Victor's out," she confirmed. He nodded. "He'll fight back," she warned. "He already lost." "How?" He screamed. "I didn't." She smiled faintly. Outside, Sophia stood barefoot on the marble floor, holding nothing but questions. Inside, the company had a new future, and the past was now quietly and finally behind them. Victor wasn't used to silence. He had once been the center of every room. Meetings stopped when he entered. Interns whispered when he passed. Even his failures had been loud. Explosive press coverage, fast pivots, aggressive rebranding. But now, silence was all he heard. The board had removed him. The press ignored him. Even Sophia was distancing herself. Less live streams, fewer photos with him, more late nights spent watching John's interviews on mute. He drank. First a little, then recklessly. He told himself it was stress, pressure, unfair betrayal. But the truth was, Victor couldn't process being irrelevant. In private, he ranted. "This is her fault," he'd snap at his empty glass, meaning Sophia. "No, his. That bastard always envied me," he'd growl, meaning John. Then he'd mutter Leah's name, low, bitter. She was nothing, just a secretary. How did I let her become this? At his lowest, he booked a ticket to Kuros's upcoming launch event. The invite wasn't for him. It was sent to a former advisor he bribed for access. He didn't care. He'd show up. He'd reclaim the stage, publicly, loudly. Sophia begged him not to. "It'll look desperate," she warned, adjusting her hair for yet another muted livestream. "John's playing a longer game. If you react now, you'll look unhinged." Victor scoffed. "I am unhinged, Sophia. What do I have left to protect?" She looked at him for a long moment. "You could start by not humiliating yourself." He didn't reply, but he didn't cancel the plan either.
"I built this," he barked toward the stage. "You're all standing here because of me." Heads turned. Security hesitated. He was still recognizable, if not welcome. Liza moved first. Calmly, quietly, she stepped off stage and signaled to a staff member. But before anyone could intervene, another voice rang out. It was Sophia. She hadn't been on the guest list, but she stood now, in the third row, clutching a designer handbag and a shaky smile. "Wait," she called. "Don't throw him out. This isn't just about him." People turned. Cameras rose. Sophia climbed 2 steps toward the stage and looked directly at John. "You still care," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You wouldn't have done all this if you didn't." Murmurs spread. Victor smirked. "See? I told you. He never got over it." Liza stood still. The team looked at John. He didn't move. So Liza walked forward and took the microphone from the podium. For a second, it was like time paused. And then she spoke. "Some people," she said clearly, "ruin themselves by chasing the same lie twice." Sophia flinched. Victor blinked like he'd been slapped. "And some," Liza continued, voice unwavering, "don't even realize they weren't the victim, they were the warning." Gasps rippled across the front rows. John didn't say anything. He didn't have to.
Security moved quickly after that. Victor protested, arms waving. "This was mine! He stole it!" he shouted. No one responded. Sophia stayed frozen. Someone whispered to her, gently asking her to exit. She nodded, dazed. As they were escorted out, Victor screaming, Sophia silently wiping under her eyes, the lights dimmed again, and the launch resumed. Like nothing had happened. Like they were never part of the story. And for everyone else, they weren't. The launch went viral. The tech itself was only half the reason. The other half was tone. No retaliation, no gossip, just clean, clinical control. That night, Sophia sat alone on the balcony of her high-rise apartment, phone untouched. She scrolled the feed and saw John's name everywhere. Kairos launches Quiet Revolution, the man who let his work speak. Revenge by restraint. She searched her own name. The most recent result was a Reddit thread titled, "Remember when she said, 'Love needs security, lol'?" She shut her phone, then stared at the skyline. In another part of the city, Victor sat in a hotel suite littered with takeout boxes and vodka bottles. He watched the launch replay on mute. He paused every time John's face appeared. No way you did this without help. Then he stared at the frame where Leah took the mic. "I should have fired you when I had the chance," he said bitterly. But even he knew it wouldn't have changed anything. She had grown too sharp, too steady, because he underestimated her, just like he underestimated John. The next day, investors called. Not Victor, not Sophia. They called Kairos. They didn't ask about the scandal. They didn't care about the outburst. They wanted updates, timelines, beta test access. John responded to none of it personally. He just forwarded everything to Liza with 2 words. Your call. That night, at a quiet team dinner, someone asked Liza what really happened between them. She smiled. There are stories worth telling, and then there are warnings better left unspoken. They nodded. Nobody pressed. Sophia live-streamed once more after that. She cried halfway through. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone, I thought I was choosing what was best for me." But the comments weren't kind. They weren't cruel either. They were silent. The worst kind of feedback for someone who lived on attention. She ended the stream and never opened the app again. Victor tried to pitch a new startup 3 months later. No one backed him. The name Kairos cast too long a shadow. He was labeled unstable, erratic, a cautionary tale on every founder's list. He eventually disappeared from the radar. People forgot what company he came from, but they remembered the launch. The press never learned the full story. Who betrayed who? Why John never spoke? What Sophia really wanted? Because John never told it. The fall didn't make headlines. No one really followed up after Victor's outburst at the Kairos launch. The media had their fill of the spectacle. Investors had already moved on. Journalists turned their attention toward the innovation, not the people discarded in its wake. Within a month, Victor filed for bankruptcy. Not just professionally, but personally. Years of reckless expenses, late-night deals, luxury leases, none of it sustainable. His accounts bled faster than he could shuffle them. Lawsuits began trickling in from silent former partners. His assets were frozen by Q3. His penthouse went first, then the office, then his car. He moved into a small corporate apartment that still smelled like the last tenant. There were no more press releases, no assistants, no honorary speaking slots at tech universities. The man once considered Silicon City's godfather of scale had become an afterthought, a minor footnote in the rise of Kairos. He tried to reach out to Sophia once, sent a voice note at 2:46 a.m. one night. "You and I, we were the ones who made things move. They just perfected the leftovers." She didn't reply. She was too busy trying to salvage her own illusion. Sophia's streams now were filled with sponsored shampoo links and affiliate codes for luxury knockoffs. Her audience had shrunk. Comments were passive-aggressive. Some pitied her. Some mocked her softly with memes. Others pretended not to recognize her at all. But it wasn't the same. Influence, it turned out, didn't linger where authenticity was never rooted. She messaged John once. He didn't open it. She messaged Leah. Leah never even saw it. Her inbox filtered Sophia's name into promotional spam automatically. John's system had set that rule up long ago, without either of them ever needing to say it out loud. Leah, meanwhile, rose fast. Kairos had made waves with its launch, but it was Leah's leadership afterward that turned them into a category-defining company. She restructured the board, hired back some of Victor's discarded talent, implemented long-term mental health initiatives, and quietly mentored 3 other women in her executive branch. A local business magazine featured her in the 40 Under 40 list. She didn't post it. John didn't either. They didn't need the internet's applause. In fact, John still didn't have a single public social media account. The company maintained its own PR, but his name rarely appeared. No interviews, no Twitter threads, no TED Talks. He lived quietly, productively, content in the shadows. Now, his own choosing.
It wasn't until almost a year later that Sophia saw him again. She was on a layover in an airport cafe, wearing sunglasses indoors, sipping matcha, scrolling through her phone like it was still a stage. The screen glowed with old photos. Her and Victor in Paris, her and John at a soft-lit restaurant. Back then, she captioned it, "Real love looks like this." Funny. That photo had been deleted when she left him, but someone had re-uploaded it to a fan forum. She never could get it taken down. She looked up, and her breath caught. John was there, sitting alone at the window table, passport next to his laptop, black coffee untouched, a novel in his lap, unread. He looked exactly the same, and yet not at all. There was calm in his posture, clean strength in the way he sat, unhurried. He wasn't waiting for anyone. He didn't need to be seen. Sophia hesitated, then stood. She walked over with practiced grace, rehearsed half-smile. He saw her, closed his book slowly. "John," she said, voice light. "Didn't expect to see you here." He nodded politely. "Flying for work?" she asked again. He nodded again. She sat down across from him without asking. Silence stretched for a moment, the clinking of cups, airport announcements, the low hum of engines outside the glass, all louder than they should have been. Then she asked, "Do you ever miss us?" He looked at her. Not cruelly. Just finally. "No. I don't miss shadows." Sophia blinked. Before she could speak again, the boarding call echoed overhead. John stood, collected his things. Didn't rush, didn't stumble. He just turned once at the edge of the cafe and nodded again, barely noticeable. Then walked toward gate 12. She stayed seated for a while, then looked down at her phone. Opened his old contact. The number was blocked. She stared at the screen. Tried to unblock it. Paused. Then locked the phone again. She looked out the window as his plane lifted into the sky. Not a single person around her recognized who he was. Not one turned to look. But she knew. She always would. And she knew now, too late, that the silence he gave her wasn't absence. It was the answer. The office was quiet. Late afternoon sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the hardwood floors in soft amber streaks. Outside, the skyline stood tall and impassive, a patchwork of ambition and exhaustion. Inside, everything moved slower, as if the air knew something had ended. John stood by the glass wall of his private office, staring out at the horizon like it held the last page of a novel he'd already read 100 times. Behind him, the soft click of heels echoed. Leah entered, carrying a ceramic mug with no logo, just clean, matte black. She set it down on the side table near the couch, not his desk. "2 sugars," she said gently. "Like always. No cream." He nodded but didn't turn. She stepped closer, paused beside him. For a few seconds, they just stood there. Then she said it, softly, as if it didn't need to be spoken, but still deserved to exist in the air. She looked tired. John blinked once. She always needed people to reflect something back at her. Affection, applause, pity, didn't matter. As long as she felt like the lead. Leah said nothing. Outside, the wind shifted. Distant car horns, the low buzz of an ambulance siren, a crow landing on the opposite rooftop. John continued. "She asked if I missed us." Leah raised her eyebrow. "What did you say?" "I said I don't miss shadows." John took a sip of the coffee, and Leah watched the steam curl from the cup and then leaned her head back slightly, eyes soft. She asked, "Do you ever wish that it hadn't gone this way?" He turned to her finally. "Every day, but not because I regret it." "Then why?" He smiled, just barely. "Because I wish they had deserved a different version of me." Leah tilted her head. "They got the one they earned," she said. He looked down once, nodding, quietly agreeing. The sun dipped another inch lower. Office lights flickered on automatically in the halls beyond, but neither of them moved. After a long pause, she asked, "Do you want the press to know the full story someday?" He said no. Immediately. They'd turn it into something it wasn't. She smirked. "What was it?" He stared at her. "The cleanest revenge I could give them. No malice, no destruction. Just strategic absence. Just silent assent. He didn't need to ruin them. He only needed to succeed where they never thought he could." Leah stood up and walked to his side again, both of them facing the city. The lights were beginning to twinkle, offices switching into night mode, windows glowing with warm or sterile light. "Back then," Leah said, "you could have taken that first job offer in Europe. You would have been gone before any of this played out." "I almost did." "So why stay?"
He looked at her. You and this company. Not because of revenge, because of legacy. She smiled. Then silence again. Until Leah asked, "Do you want me to update the contact filters?" He raised an eyebrow. "She tried to unblock you," she explained, referring to Sophia. "Just a hunch." He chuckled once. Dry. Quiet. "No need. Let her see I've moved on. It's a better punishment than any response." She nodded, then turned to go. Just as she reached the door, she glanced over her shoulder. "Anything else you need?" He stared out at the skyline again, and finally said, almost to himself, "She dumped me for a richer man." He smiled. "So I bought his company and promoted his ex."